Ladies and gents, my name is Taylor Vinsrud. I want to talk about out-of-body experiences, something completely unrelated to your agency. Although there is a benefit to having one that I think helps you in your agency, it's really far off for me to try to correlate the two. But if you don't believe in out-of-body experiences, if you think that you're just going to die and turn into a tree after you die, that's totally fine. But if this is too radical for you and you can't handle this, please, by all means, hit the unsubscribe button, leave this channel, never come back, and never watch a video produced by this channel ever again. But if you're slightly interested, well, I will have fun enjoying this topic and discussing my own personal experiences. So an out-of-body experience is kind of like probably what you saw if you saw the movie The Avengers, or this is actually a scene from Doctor Strange. Now, this is kind of what it's like. It's almost like you got your physical body and then you got this light body, this astral body. Some people call it astral. I just like to call it light body. Other people call it higher self. And the two are basically always connected, but very few people get to be in the physical and remove themselves from the physical body while they're still alive and experience the light body. Now, very common as well, near-death experiences, otherwise known as NDEs. People report to have light body experiences or out-of-body experiences where they're hovering above the car accident, they're looking down at themselves and their body. That's a very, very common thing. There's thousands and thousands of stories of that. There's many books you can read on it. This is not a rare thing. This is very common. Now, personally, for me, this journey of having out-of-body experiences quite frequently all started when I went down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories back in 2019. This is probably Christmas Day that you're going to be listening to this, so Merry Christmas if you believe in Christmas. If you don't, Happy Holidays. But this all started in 2019 when I went down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, and this led me into the astral domain, or otherwise known as, I would like to call it, the astral circus. And that's where I ended up discovering a couple people who talked about and had courses on how to get into very deep meditative states and get your brain waves into delta waves and theta waves. You can Google that if you're not familiar with that. If you're not familiar with what that is, but you can get into meditative states where your body falls asleep, your brain gets so basically like low into delta or theta waves, which is commonly known as sleep, but you can still keep the mind awake, and that's when you disconnect from the physical body and you move into this light body, astral body, higher self body, whatever you want to call it. Let's just call it light body. For me, phase one started when I bought this course by a guy named Gerald O'Donnell. I'm not promoting the course. If you want to go and Google him and find his course, that's totally fine. But he was part of a CIA program that was called Remote Project Stargate, I think is what it's called. I'll have to find the screenshot of the actual release documents. The CIA came out and said it was a complete failure, although if you watch documentaries on the people who were part of this Project Stargate thing, they said it was a huge success, and it's absolutely ridiculous that the CIA ridiculed it after they released documents of it because they spent millions and millions of dollars on this. So remote viewing is not just a thing that's utilized by people in the public. It's also utilized by the CIA to gather intelligence of certain things. Now, this was at a certain time. I don't know if they still do it, but they certainly tried to do it for some time, and it's publicly released in documents. But for me, this started by Gerald O'Donnell, who helped the CIA build this program. He can't obviously prove that, because when you're part of the CIA, you can't necessarily tell people what part of the CIA you are involved in. So you can judge that for yourself if you want to believe he was part of it, but I learned from him, and this is the first experience for me. So I started doing these meditations, which will primarily help you with remote viewing. Remote viewing is basically the practice of seeing anything at any time, anywhere. Yes, that means you can go and see anything in the past, present, or future. This involves multiple timelines. It's some really weird shit. I feel like I'm going to lose a lot of subscribers, but I'm okay with that. I enjoy talking about this subject. And yes, it's a real thing. I experienced it. I did it. I would say it is the most mind-boggling thing, and we'll get deeper into it here. This is going to be a pretty lengthy rant that I'm going to go on, but stay with me. So you can research into it. There's also a thing called remote influencing, but let's just talk about what I started to experience when I did these remote viewing meditations that he has. There's about 24 in his program that he released. I think the program is like $150 or something like that. But phase one is I'm laying in bed, and basically what happens is like you see in this photo where there's this kid here sleeping, or this guy is sleeping, and it looks like there's two of him. Now, the one that is sitting upright is the astral body, basically the light body, the higher self. I want to call it the light body or higher self. And what started to happen for me was not the whole body would sit up, but just the hands. The hands, I would start to be able to move my hands up and down. Like my forearms could move up and down, because when I was doing these meditations, it was recommended that you do it laying down somewhere comfortable. So I did it laying down in my bed, and this is typically what would happen. All of a sudden, the hands would start to go up and down. Really weird. And when I opened my eyes, I was like, didn't feel like I moved my forearms at all. And you can kind of tell if you're meditating for 30, 40 minutes and you're not moving your body at all. It's kind of like when you're falling asleep and you haven't moved or changed positions in a long time. When you change positions, your body kind of like cracks a little bit. It feels very stiff. Well, once you move it, it feels more loose. And when I would open my eyes to see if my forearms were in the air, I would open my eyes and my forearms weren't in the air, and it was really weird. And so that would kind of happen where I would open my eyes and all of a sudden my forearms are just magically down and they're not in the air, and it feels like they never were. So that's phase one, slight out-of-body experiences. Phase two was basically happened very quickly in a matter of I would say the 7th or 8th meditation. All of a sudden, just laying in the bed, meditating, and instead of going up and floating out of the body, as you can see in this diagram, what happened was it was like this sudden fall where it just fell right through the bed and continued falling and just going through the entire, we live in a high floor in this apartment building, and I was just falling through floor after floor after floor, just going through every floor. When you're in this light body thing, you're not, it's not physical, so you can just go through walls and whatever, and it was very weird, very scary. It kind of freaked me out the first time, because if you've never had this happen to you, it's pretty scary the first time, because it's not like a dream where you're aware that, oh, this is just a dream and I'm in this dream, I can do whatever I want and then I'm going to wake up. No, this is like you're awoke, you know that you're laying in the bed, you're awake, and you're not really sure if this is actually a dream, so it's kind of freaky. You're not really sure if you're ever going to actually come back into your physical body, so it was really scary. At least for the first time for me. No harm done, nothing terrible happened. I'm obviously still here, totally fine. But complete out-of-body experiences within short range started to happen. So we went from slight out-of-body experiences to complete out-of-body experiences, and this happened in a matter of 1 week after doing the meditations. And then phase 3 was complete out-of-body experiences with long range. Now, what do I mean by with long range? Well, when you have an out-of-body experience, generally speaking, for some people, you'll just be standing in your room. You can see your body. Others won't have all senses. Other people may not have eyesight. For a long time, I didn't have eyesight. I only had touch. I had the ability to smell. There was no real taste, but you could clearly touch things. You could clearly smell things, and you could clearly hear things as well. Hearing was another huge sense. And the only one that took me a while to develop was sight. But this is where sight came in on the complete out-of-body experiences with long range and sight. So the ability to see, feel, touch, smell. The only thing I didn't have was taste. And so what's really weird about this is when you're in this state, for example, I got into this out-of-body state and thought about, I want to be at the pool. There's a pool in our building, in the apartment building. And all of a sudden, within a split second, I was at the pool. And it feels so real. It's not just a dream. You know in dreams how you can see something, you're like, oh, that's clearly not real. There's a horse talking on the phone or something very unrealistic. No, this is I'm at the pool, there's some regular people here, and it's really weird because it looks like I'm actually at the pool, just chilling at the pool. And then all of a sudden, if I snap my fingers and think I want to be 1,000 feet in the air looking over Panama City, 1,000 feet in the air looking over Panama City. Very weird experience. So that happened, and then all of a sudden, kind of when you're in this state, sometimes you can get just immediately sucked back into the body. That happened in this first time where I was kind of flying around Panama City, and then something happened and just basically instantly got vacuumed back into the body. It's a very intense kind of abrupt experience, but sometimes, not always does this happen, but in this case it happened quite a lot for me, where it would just be sucked right back into the body, and you come back into the physical body and you're like, holy shit, I don't even know what that just was. That was crazy. That's kind of how it was for me. This progressed to where I would be like, hey, I want to go to the moon. And I was flying around on the moon 100 feet above the moon. I know this sounds insane. This is why I'm ready to lose subscribers. And if you subscribe to this video, wow, that is epic. I'm assuming you have a very open mind. But if you're about to unsubscribe, I recommend you do some research. I'm going to do my best to show some screenshots and everything and all the proof of remote viewing and remote influence. It's a real thing. The CIA spent dozens of millions of dollars on this thing. And there's lots of people who have experiences doing it. There's many books that are written on it. It's no joke. Now, this is phase 4, which is extremely weird tunneling and portaling. So if there was a time where I would be like, hey, I want to go see like Mars or something. I want to go to like the surface of Mars. Sometimes when I said certain things about like wanting to go to certain places, it would just like all of a sudden everything would morph into this weird looking tunnel like you're seeing now. Now there's other versions of this, and I pulled up a bunch of different ones here that I tried to find. Like this is an example. This is an example. Like all these different kind of tunneling things here that you're seeing are examples of kind of what was seen when sometimes I would want to go somewhere and it would take me through this weird tunnel. Now, this is a really weird experience. Like it is so freaking bizarre to go through this thing in what does, again, it's not like a dream. It's like almost in your actual physical body, but you're going through this tunnel. And I never made it to the other side ever in any of these tunnel experiences where I said, hey, I want to go see Mars, go through the tunnel, and I was just thinking, okay, on the other side, I'm going to actually get to the destination. Never made it to the destination. Usually after only like 5 or 6 seconds, I wouldn't be able to make it through this thing because my mind was so like blown. And typically what happens is when your mind is really like kind of like freaked out or almost just like shocked by something, it shocks you out of the out-of-body experience and back into the physical body and wakes you up because it kind of like wakes the mind up, so to speak. Because again, when you're in this state, generally speaking, you're in theta waves or delta waves, okay? You have basically when you're operating like right now, I believe we're in beta waves right now. And then there's alpha waves. Alpha waves is kind of like you're losing your focus in class and you're wandering and you're daydreaming is kind of the alpha wave state. Then you have theta, which is like dream sleep. Then you have delta, which is like deep sleep, where there's not really much dreams. In this out-of-body experience, you're typically in theta and delta, from what I understand. I really wanted to buy an EEG device that would measure, I think it's called EEG, a device that would measure the brain waves while I got into these states, because I really wanted to see where the brain waves were oscillating, like for example during this crazy experience of going through a tunnel, because I'm almost certain it would have been in theta or delta, but I never had the proof to I never bought the EEG device. Anyways, phase 5 here, and we're going to get to a conclusion as to what I actually took away from all this, because it's quite weird, it's quite abnormal. And there is some positive beneficial takeaways. Phase 5, I don't want to freak you out in saying this, and this is not a bad thing, but there was encounters with extremely weird astral entities. Some people call them astral entities. You can call them whatever you want. These things are sometimes benign, sometimes not. I mean, it depends on your experience. For me, I witnessed some which I'm not sure if they were, of light or of dark origin, so to speak. But in one particular encounter, there was a situation where I was coming out of this out-of-body experience. I opened my eyes and I was in almost like a sleep paralysis state where I couldn't move the physical body. But when I opened my eyes, I saw what looked like a tall, slender man, super dark, all black. There was no white head. It was just all black. It was like a silhouette, super tall, probably 15 feet tall. Head was nearly touching the ceiling, right next to me, standing over me beside the bed. No, obviously for me, my first thought was not, wow, hey, what's going on? Like, it's great to see you here. No, it was like, holy shit, I don't know what that thing is and I can't move. And it was like almost like a nightmare, I guess you could say. What happened was closed my eyes, tried to get back into the physical body, wake myself up, open my eyes. It was gone. Nothing was there. I've had conversations with people who've practiced remote viewing, who've practiced remote influencing and getting into out-of-body states. Sometimes what can happen is you'll encounter these weird entities, and that's totally fine. If they're not benign, my recommendation to you, from what was taught to me from Gerald O'Donnell, is just to greet these things with absolute love and light. If they aren't of benign origin, they can't stand love, and if you actually see one and you try to send it love, it's just going to completely go away, and it's just basically it can't stand love. So sending it love will make it go away, and that's really as simple as that. I never was once harmed in any of this process. I don't know people that have been. Maybe there's been people that have been personally. Never happened to me. I've heard people talking about terrible things that happened. I've never ever experienced a terrible thing that's happened. And generally speaking, if you greet anything that you see that's not pleasant with love and light, it will be totally fine. Don't freak out. And that was phase 5, so that was really weird. I could talk more about that, but I won't. Phase 6 is probably the greatest thing ever. When you're in these out-of-body states, and this didn't come after all of this. This started to happen actually right here in phase 3, and phase 4, and phase 5, but I'd put this as the last phase. So it's kind of weird. Sometimes when you'll get into these out-of-body states, it's almost like there's this, and this is the best way I can explain it, orgasmic vibratory light pulsating rapidly through your body. And it's not just your physical body, it's like this light body thing that you're in when you're in this out-of-body state. And it's not like your normal orgasm that you're going to have if you're having sex or whatever. It's completely different. It is literally like full body, okay? And if you've ever been hooked up to, I want to say, I don't know, physiotherapy, you know how you can have those like patches that shoot electricity through you, and it helps kind of move the blood, circulate the blood, move the muscles, activate the muscles. You've probably seen that stuff. It's common in acupuncture as well. But physiotherapy, I think chiro, maybe, I don't know, mainly physio. It's kind of like that feeling, except it's super pleasurable, and you can call it orgasmic if you want, and it's throughout your entire body. It's nothing like I've ever felt before. It's completely different than a normal physical experience through something like a sexual interaction. But it is the most pleasurable thing ever, and it's so weird to experience, because when I was experiencing this, first of all, it's complete shock. It's like, what in the world is this? I don't even know what this is, but it feels great, so you're just kind of like accepting of it. But generally speaking, what would happen is it would last for 5, 10, 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds at most, and then I would come back into the physical body. And it was weird because when you come back into the physical body, this is again just my subjective experience, you could feel it in the physical body too, and it would start to kind of decrease and fizzle out and stop. The vibratory energy would kind of slow down over a period of 3 to 5 seconds. But very, very blissful. That's the only way to describe it. Very blissful and very beautiful. So those are the 6 phases. And again, this phase started happening back at phase 3. And don't worry about this. It's nothing too crazy. If it starts happening, I mean, you just send them love and light. You got nothing to worry about. What did I take away from this? Well, I would say for me, the biggest takeaway was primarily just that I am personally 1000% of the belief that if I die tomorrow and I get hit by a bus, whatever body I was in when I wasn't in the physical body is the body that I'll be in when I die. And you're definitely not going to turn into a tree. Okay, again, this is my subjective experience. This is where if you're like an atheist or you don't believe in God or you think there's no afterlife, that's totally fine. That's up to you. But I guarantee you, if you have some of these out-of-body experiences that I was discussing, you're going to completely change your paradigm. Why? I can't explain it to you in a rational, logical, objective way. I can only tell you from subjective experience, which is kind of the unfortunate thing. And by the way, I think that's the limitation of science, is that they want to measure everything and they're not willing to go past the objective and into the subjective because they say they can't measure the subjective, which is why you look at all these people who have NDEs and out-of-body experiences, and scientists are like, well, hey, that's great. You know, everyone's reporting similar things, how they're out of body, they're looking at their body, they can see it's crazy. There's near-death experiences where the person who was clearly unconscious on the ground, basically dead in a car accident, was able to tell the doctors which person first came up to their body and started performing CPR. They can clearly describe, oh yeah, he was a dude, he had brown hair, and it was kind of like pushed up to the side. He had a yellow jacket with a red cross on the back of it. Like, there's so many stories of that crazy stuff where they can clearly identify it, but science won't look at it because there's no way for them to plug in a cord or like measure this or prove this, because they can't record the experience that happened when you're in this almost not different dimension. Okay, so takeaways for me, far less fear of death, like exponentially far less fear of death. Again, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm of the belief 1000% that this is not over. So that's a beautiful thing because it makes you a lot more fearless, in my opinion. So that's the biggest benefit to something like having an out-of-body experience, getting decent at remote viewing, and being able to get into these deep meditative blissful states is fearlessness. Okay, there are probably many other benefits. I've heard of exponentially greater benefits that you can do. Remote influencing is a whole other thing. I won't really get into that, but I'll try to put a link to Gerald O'Donnell, who is the guy who I learned from in the description of this video. I forget what his actual website is called, but I'll do my best to put a link to it. If you enjoyed this video, different video, Christmas Day, a little bit of a gift for everyone, completely unrelated business. Hit the subscribe button. It's the only thing I ask you to do. This is 1 out of 100 videos that is completely way off the charts when it comes to not really related to business. But I did my best to correlate it in the sense that I believe that it has had benefits because it makes me a lot more fearless in terms of, like, you know, death. And just fearlessness in general will result in more, in my opinion, more inner peace and the ability to just not be afraid of anything. There's a pandemic going on. Great. If I die, that's fine, because you know what? I know that I'm totally going to be fine. And so it's a great paradigm, in my opinion. It's a great thing to experience because of this fearlessness benefit. So, ladies and gents, if you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to completely tell me that everything I said is completely wrong and it's false, and that when you die, you do turn into a tree, that's totally fine. Please let me know in the comment section below. I'm open to love and hate. And if you don't like it, hit the dislike button. There's nothing wrong with hitting the dislike button. But if you did like it, please hit the sub button. Much love, you guys, and I'll see you in next week's video. Ciao.